Okay, so this video is the first of a set of videos just kind of talking about this idea of a function. To start off with, and here are some kind of like white paper definitions, that sort of thing. But just to kind of give you a little bit of background. For my courses that I teach, this is about the first major definition that students see. And so to give a little bit of background as to how a definition is made and how this whole thing begins, we start off with these list of assumptions. Most people are familiar with the assumptions on the real numbers as far as what are called the field axioms, though you might not discuss it specifically as that thing. But you'll notice that addition is commutative. You can reverse the order of addition and it stays the same. There are also 3 others for addition and 4 of the same for multiplication, and then you have the distributive property combining the two, forming a field in algebra. There are multiple other ways of doing it, but in general for math, we start off with this basic set of assumptions that we just assume are true. We don't have to explain them. They have no reasoning. They might have a logical, they should have a logical consistency about them. But by and large, it's just like, I think we should do this. And then we'll consider everything else. That's kind of what the assumptions are. So from that, you build this idea of this branch of mathematics. So some of the assumptions tend to be like, what do words mean? Not all words can be defined without going back into the word itself. It's like the word the, define it. And if you look at the dictionary, you get a laundry list of, oh, well, here's a bunch of different uses. Well, what does it mean? We don't really know. But everybody knows what it is. It's called an undefined term at that moment. So we have an undefined term that we're going to be discussing today called a correspondence. You can think of it as just a connection between two things. So the first definition, a relation. A relation is a correspondence from a set A. So this is just some random set of stuff called the domain. This is kind of where you begin. This would be typically known as your x values. To a set B, we don't know what that is, but it's corresponding to it. So there's some kind of a connection between the two. Called the range. For most of the younger levels, I'd say the more fundamental levels in college and in high school, they were referred to as range. As you progress, you'll probably get converted to codomain. They kind of mean the same thing. To a set B, there's a correspondence to a set B such that for every element in A, there's at least one corresponding element in B. So if you can think about it as let A, so let our domain be the set of all people in the world, and say let B represent all of the dates on the calendar. So all of the days of a year, not a specific year, but just any general year. Then there is a relation between each person in the world and the birth dates. Any 2 people could have the same birth date. Okay, that's perfectly allowed. And each birth date may actually have more than one person associated with it. That's fine too. The funny thing is though that unless you're like, this is kind of gross to think about it, but unless somehow you're pushed out and then you go back in, and it's like right at midnight, so your head popped out at 11:59 and then popped back out at 12:01. You really only have one birthday, and so that kind of sets up this other idea called a function. And a function is a relation that for each element in the domain, there corresponds exactly one element of the range. What this means is that each person has exactly one birth date. That's it. There can be no multiples of that particular thing. So in math, as far as what we're going to be discussing is for graphing and that sort of thing, and how do you represent them and what does a function look like, we can think of the domain as the set of all possible x values when you're discussing the Cartesian coordinate plane, and the range as the set of all possible y values. The two do not have to be the same. Some functions will have domain restrictions, which also tend to restrict their ranges. It is not necessary, though. So, and others may have restrictions on the range. So this video is just to kind of inform you of what the definition of a function is, and then I'm going to make a second video to go through the process and kind of view what a function might look like in real life.